It's a heavy metal hero in a half shell. This is your look at the new NECA Toys Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the mighty Metalhead. Metalhead has the minds of all 4 Ninja Turtles ingrained to its programming. This robotic reptile comes with a full arsenal of accessories, including 6 different hands, swappable drill and vacuum arm attachments, and an opening chest plate and plug-in blaster. Before we get a closer look at Metalhead and the accessories that come included with the figure, the first thing we're going to do is figure out actually how tall the figure stands. He is notably taller than the other Turtle brothers. I'll show you guys that in a second. Before we do that, though, I'm going to stop the tape measure at the very top of his head and stopping it right there. While I'm showing you guys the measurements, by the way, I'd like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of Metalhead that we're having a look at in this review. Metalhead stands at 6.8 inches in height. And switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at the figure standing 17.4, almost 17.5 centimeters tall. Showing you how Metalhead stacks up with some of the other figures, let's bring in some of the more recently looked at characters, like April O'Neil, for example. Still small. And we'll also bring in Casey Jones. Those are some of the newer ones that we had a look at. Of course, we can also bring some of the Turtles, for example, in, and I always seem to go to the same 2 figures, it seems. There's Michelangelo. Let's just get April O'Neil to stand up here. She's very small on her feet. Well, she's small overall. No, that wasn't intended to be rhyming, but there we go. Get her to stand properly. And who else can we bring in? Let's bring in Leonardo. Donatello is, I guess he's off building gadgets. I don't have him readily available at the moment, but it sort of gives you an idea of how much taller Metalhead is versus some of the other figures that we've gotten from NECA. NECA did some neat things when it came to the accessories for Metalhead's release. The accessories will either swap out with the hands that he's already got in his forearms, or in the case of the blaster, it will be the doors that open up on his front chest piece that the blaster will attach to that. Before we get to the blaster, though, let's talk about the actual things that it replace out with his hands. One of which being his drill. The drill is done in a very dense plastic. There's no bend or give to this. It's done in a lighter, kind of whitish gray color with spirals, as you can see, panel lined in black. So it does look a little bit more like its cartoon counterpart. There is a point to it. You will want to be careful, though, keeping that away from your eyes. I know I sound like a parent sometimes. And then on the back side there's a peg. That's going to fit into the forearm. And all you really have to then do is remove the hand from the, well, instead of actually talking about it, let's show you what I mean. You're going to go ahead and just grab the figure, take the hand, and remove it from the forearm. I just want to also say it's not specific to this side. If you want to, for example, put the drill on this side and the vacuum that we're going to be looking at on this side, you can do that. I'm just doing this on this side for the time being. But you'll take the peg, there's the peg right there, line it up to the hole on this side, and you'll fit this in place. While that other hand just popped off, we'll probably find something that we could put there in its place in a moment. You can see how it holds the drill perfectly fine in his hand. Speaking of his other hand that just happened to pop off, let's put something there, shall we? In favor of the hand, he does also come included with the vacuum. The vacuum is a nice inclusion, as he's had it in the cartoon. It's all done in a dark gray, much considerably darker than even his body or the drill itself. Has some nice, interesting additional shadowing that they've added to the end of it. You sort of see it very subtly here on the neck. It's a more gunmetal color here, and one shade darker is the shadowing than they've done on this side. You see a little bit more of that, I think, on the bag. The bag is more of a kind of tangerine orange with a more warmer orange on the inside. This vacuum also does have a pin. It runs from the entryway here and exits out on the other side. It does actually have poseability, but one thing I will say is when you get this out of the packaging, be very careful, as when I did first get this out, I noticed it creaked and squeaked a lot when I was moving it. Creaking and squeaking is not the things you want figures to have when you first get them out of the packaging. Usually that may be the telltale sign that something's going to break. So I will say when you do get the vacuum out of the packaging, just be really careful. It goes from an upright position like this to a more angled position like this. I wouldn't really say go any further past that point. You sort of can see the limitations that the back of the vacuum give you. It only hinges to that point and then sort of stops right there. But to attach that to his hand, the hand that would have been there but just happened to pop off on me, you're just, again, going to do the exact same thing as the drill. Take the peg, line it to the hole, and just fit that into place. I don't know necessarily if you would be the type that would want to have both accessories on his hand. I can't imagine he's drilling and destroying foot with one hand and vacuuming the turtle layer with the other. But again, it's a nice touch that NECA includes this, and it's entirely then your decision as to how you want to display the figure for yourself. I did also say that he has a front chest blaster. That may not be the actual term I should be giving it, but he has sort of a laser gun that can come out from his chest piece. Basically, it works that this is the front of the blaster right there. This is basically where the lasers would be shooting out. And it attaches into Metalhead's body via this peg located on the back. In addition to that, it also has a wire that you can see sort of sticking out. Well, it's sticking out quite considerably. This is done in a brittle plastic, so you want to be careful. You don't want to be bending this around too much. But at least when it came to designing this, NECA had actually a place where you could put this as well. All you have to do is take the figure. On the front of the figure's torso are these two pieces right here. This would be the front of his shell after all. But there's hinges on both sides. So what you can do is you can open these little tiny doors up, one on this side, one on the other. And while there isn't a whole lot of detail to be had on the inside, but though to be fair, they did actually put some interesting details on the inside of the doors, things that you wouldn't normally go looking for. On the one side, where there isn't anything that you can do on this side, however, there's that little peg, there's a little hole, I should say, right there, and there's a hole just below it. All you have to do is take the blaster and take this piece right here and line it up and fit it into that hole. While you were putting this in place, I also want to say too, it does fit in well, but you don't want to apply too much pressure, because that's a very thin piece of plastic. If you bend it too much or push it in too much, you may run the risk of bending it or causing a stress mark right there. Like I said, though, there is a section for the wire, though. The wire fits right there in that hole, although truthfully, I had some difficulty getting it to line up. I know if it's the best bet to get the wire in the hole first and then fit the blaster in, sort of you can do that, but a lot of times I noticed when I was putting it in, the wire just kept falling out. It doesn't give me as much the difficulty as, say, Slash's backpack that we looked at in a previous review, but at the very least, you can have him with the laser gun sticking out from his chest, and that is a super cool looking touch that NECA incorporated with their figure release. And of course, like all other turtle figures, he also comes included with some interchangeable hands. Currently in the sockets, and when you do immediately get Metalhead out of this packaging, he's just going to have some closed fists. Not the most exciting, I know, admittingly, but he does also have a pair of gripping hands. Ironically enough, he doesn't come with anything to grip necessarily. All the accessories, as we've already had a look at, are cases in which you're going to be only popping these hands out in favor of the accessories anyways. But he does come with a couple of gripping hands I'm sure you could probably make use of by finding some of the other accessories that came included with the previous turtle figures. He does also come, or it also comes, do we want to call him a he? I'm going to call him a he. He also comes included with some just relaxed hands. Probably going to be displaying him with one of these and then displaying an accessory on the other hand, literally on the other hand. To change out the hands, as we've already seen before, just going to go ahead and grab the figure's forearm, just pop it off like so, and just replace it with whatever hand you decide to go with. Oh, we almost made the mistake. Thumbsies go in. There we go. But I think when it comes time for me to display the figure for myself, I think I'm probably going to go the route of one hand. And then on the other hand, I think I'm probably going to be displaying him with a vacuum. I just like the look of the vacuum. It's entirely up to you. One of the neat things, again, about all these figures that NECA continues to put out is that with all the different accessories that they come included with, there's a lot of mixing and matching. Again, you can decide for yourself what hands you want to use. So if you want to display your Metalhead, for example, with a vacuum and a drill, why not? Why not? He could be fighting the foot soldier and cleaning up the turtle's lair. That sounds like that would be fun. So for Metalhead here, this could be my favorite figure that NECA has released under the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle banner. I know obviously anybody that's going to be getting into collecting the turtle toys from NECA will probably want to start the obvious places of getting the Turtle Brothers. But I gotta say, for all the detail that they actually put into this piece, there's really a lot of cool elements that they put into this, making it look like, as the case with all the other turtle figures that we've looked at, like their cartoon counterparts. For example, if we look at Metalhead's head, for example, did you know that his mouth actually does open? You get your just finger in there, and you can actually open and close it. Now, really, they didn't even need to do this. They could have simply just had the head sculpt looking like this. I mean, looking at it, it doesn't even look like it would be a case where the mouth would actually be able to open, but it does. And that's a nice little touch that NECA put into this piece. Of course, you've got the eyes done there, outlined, done in black. And really, that's the case everywhere when you're looking at this figure. You get all the colors that are accurate to the cartoon, but then you're getting those outlines done in black, where you have all those little details then pop. You still have the shadowing, which carries over to Metalhead as well. You'll see it more so here when you're looking at his shoulder, for example. He's got the area along the top that's been done in a lighter gray, and the lower area where the light isn't going to be hitting it as much, you've got the more darker gray that's been shadowed in there. One really neat touch about this particular figure, if you spin it around to the back, his back shell not only has the belt like the other Turtle Brothers, but he does also have a switch. And a small detail that I really was not to expect, that they actually put it so that you can turn the switch on and off. Obviously, this is a hinge joint. It's not even a ball joint, not that I can see at least. It doesn't look like it hinges back just a little bit. Maybe it might be a ball joint, but certainly not. Nothing that you would want to be fighting with. It does on, it does off. That's all it needs to do. And you want to be really careful that this doesn't bang at all. The nature of how thin that plastic is for the switch, this could most definitely break, so you just want to be careful. But really neat, the fact that they would even put that there. A little switch. Metalhead literally has a little switch on the back of his body. That's really fun. He's a good beefy sized figure. You really feel it when you get this figure in your hand. Like he's made of good, solid, dense plastic. Quite considerably taller, of course, than some of the other turtles that we've had a look at. Again, we can bring in, say, the likes of... Let's bring in Leonardo again so you guys can see just how much bigger Metalhead actually is versus a regular turtle. Probably would have made more sense, I feel, for the comparison to bring in Donatello, but I don't have Donatello available for my displaying just for right now. But you'll sort of get the same idea. Most turtles will only go up to roughly about his elbow or so, and that's a pretty tall looking turtle. Nice little touches that they also added to the figure was the inclusion of his grenades on both sides of his belt. The grenades are not removable, they're part of his belt, so don't try to take those off. But they're done very cleanly in white, with the panel linings running straight through it. Generally, the paint on this is quite clean. Things that I would normally expect to see for like yellow. Yellow is always a problematic color because you can really see imperfections where it's sometimes not nearly enough yellow, or sometimes the yellow bleeds onto a part that's next to it. In the case here of Metalhead, all the areas that are in yellow, including the undersides of his feet, including the areas of his knee pads, and the elbow pads are quite clean. The interesting thing about the elbow pad, though, is it's made of a softer plastic. It's not the same dense plastic that they use for the knee area here. So when you do move like the elbows, for example, like with the Turtle Brothers we've seen before, the elbow pad sort of goes along with it and it hides the joint quite nicely. Maybe that is the only area where I see a little bit of imperfection, where it maybe seems like a little bit of the paint has flaked off, but other than that, I think the paint is generally quite clean on this. It carries the tradition of going the darker and lighter sides to the figure. So with the other turtle figures that we've looked at, the back end of it, you sort of can see a dividing line where all the back forearm area, the back of its body, the back of its legs, for example, all have the more darker shade to the lighter shade that's on the front of the figure. The shell doesn't seem to have any of that. In fact, actually, the back of the shell seems the same color as the front of the shell. So there are some places that it doesn't get that shadowing. Sometimes too much shadowing, I feel, would just detract from the sculpting of the figure. So in this case, for Metalhead, I'm glad he only has it on his arms, his head, and his legs, and he doesn't have it anywhere here, and it's on the back shell of the figure. For the figure's articulation, the head rotates back and forth. You can hinge it up, you can hinge it down, and you can also rock it back and forth. We've already looked at, he does have the open and close mouth. Quite easy to open and close, once you get your finger in there, of course. For his arms, they hinge out. Now, the arms are a little on the stubborn side. I can only really get them, I can get one arm to this extent. And that is what, roughly about a 75-degree angle bend. This other arm is a little on the tighter side. You can still get it, it's just a little tighter to get to the end of the journey. But it gets to about, again, a 75-degree angle bend. If you feel like you want to loosen these up a little bit, sometimes you can also take like a hairdryer, just sort of heat the joint, soften that up just enough that you can start moving and navigating those arms. Again, I find 9 times out of 10, as soon as I get this out of the packaging, if I just slowly start working the joints like this, slowly working them back and forth, they'll eventually free up. I don't feel like you need to submerge them in hot water to pull that off. But the arms do rotate all the way around. He does have a double hinge joint on the elbow, though you can't really see too much of it because he's got the elbow pad over top of it. And the robot, Metalhead, also has a swivel on the bicep. Which I still think, I guess you would count as a bicep, even though it's really just technically part of his robotic arm. The hands rotate all the way around. They hinge back and forth. The figure doesn't have any torso articulation. One thing you will want to be careful, though, is when you are moving the arms, when you are moving the legs, or when you're really moving anything where you're wanting to grab to the back of the figure, just be, again, careful of that little switch. If you put pressure again against it to do something to the front of the figure, you don't want to accidentally push too far down on this and snap that little switch off. I see that potentially happening if you're not careful. The legs split out, and you can sort of see the inner workings of how these are attached to a very large ball joint. That allows the legs to go freely forward, freely back. Stops to about this point only because the shell sits a little further down on the figure. He does also have a swivel on the top of the thigh, double hinge on the knee. And then for his feet rock back and forth, and they also hinge up and down. Some of the other turtle figures that we've seen before also have toe articulation. Metalhead doesn't have toe articulation, but he does have, at the very least, peg holes on the undersides of his feet. So if you wanted to make use of a display stand, you can most definitely do that with Metalhead. You can also get him in some interesting dynamic poses by making use of those display stands. Again, we'll just bring in a couple of the turtle brothers so that you guys can see just how much taller, how much beefier you end up getting Metalhead here compared to some of the other turtles that we've looked at before. Here's Michelangelo, here's Leonardo. Yeah, he scales well. He was bigger in the cartoon, he was bigger in the arcade, and he's certainly bigger than the other turtle brothers that we've looked at before, also released from the folks over at NECA Toys. Of all the turtle figures that NECA has put out thus far, I feel like I've had the most fun, honestly, playing around with Metalhead. I know as an adult, we don't like to say that we quote-unquote play with our toys. We're all guilty of it. I know from time to time, we all take our figures off the shelf, we put them in different poses, and we put different accessories in their hands. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Of all the turtle figures that we've gotten, I feel like I've genuinely had the most fun playing around with Metalhead. I mean, look at him. He's a big, bulky bit of plastic, bigger than the other turtle figures that we've gotten. He has swappable hand accessories. So if you don't want to have the boring ho-hum hands, you can swap them out for a portable vacuum. You can swap it out for a drill attachment. You can open up his chest piece and add a laser blaster. And heck, the figure even has an on and off switch on his shell. All add up to one of the funnest figure experiences I've had so far with these brand new turtle figures released from NECA Toys. He's got some nice decent coloring to him, still has the shading of the back of his body and the lighter colors on the front. Like I said, there's a lot to really enjoy about this particular figure release. Have you managed the chance to pick up Metalhead just yet? Let me know down below in the comments section, or based on this review, what do you guys think of the brand new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the mighty Metalhead? A big thank you, by the way, as well to the folks over at NECA who provided the sample of Metalhead that we had a look at in this review. Metalhead should be available right now in Target. Walmart are allocated for the movie line of Turtles figures, and Target is allocated towards the cartoon line. If you are in the market of getting these ones for yourself, as I would stress again, go to your local stores if you can, if you have Targets at least. I know Canada, we don't. try to go that route before you go the route of going online. NECA has since really started to rectify the problems that they were experiencing with the bots and people scalping these, making the figures, a lot of them now pre-orders on their site, on their end, where people will get the opportunity to get these figures like the Super Shredder well in advance before they hit the retail shelves. So again, NECA is continuing to make sure that their figures come from their warehouse and directly into the hands of the collectors, and hopefully not into the hands of those nasty scalpers. But let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of Metalhead. If you're new to the channel and liking the content you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting the subscribe button down below and turning the bell notification on. And just an FYI for yourself, you can write that down in your agenda book. Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you'll find new videos on this channel. There's going to be a whole ton of NECA reviews lined up and coming soon, so keep your peepers peeled for that, as well as other videos coming your way as well. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.